Good morning. I'm also going to talk about Korea, but hopefully not about music and games, but more focus more on the impact of TV series on communication in China. Communicating in China is always remains a big challenge for Western brands because it's always difficult to understand. They need to change perspective and not only to understand cultural differences, but also their evolution. That's why we really need to understand what are the influences in China, and not only the Western influences, but also Asian influences. So I'm going to first explain a little bit what about the impact of TV series in China, and then give you three different examples from luxury brand, premium brand, and mass market brand using Korean celebrities. We were at the beginning of the phenomenon, so it's just examples. Before we start, I would like to put quickly into perspective, as Ms. Bongrain said, we don't often talk about Asian influences in China, but the Korean craze is not the first Asian craze. In the early 1990s, 80s, we had the Hong Kong craze in China. Sorry, I need my glasses. So many Asian influences, and the common characteristic of all these Asian influences is that they all export to China a sort of pre-digested American culture that they mix with something else. And they all have a long-term, beyond the passing fads, they all have a long-term impact on the new Chineseness. So it's very important to understand all of these layers of influences. So the first one, very quickly, Hong Kong. It was all about Cantopop music, kung fu movies, and a lot about also Western culture, like so many men in suits, very classy, and at the same time with a rock style. So a very classy Western image imported in China. That's why so many brands, Western brands still today, especially in the luxury industry, would first localize their communication in China by using Hong Kong celebrities and not mainland. Then the Taiwanese influence, which is more restricted, more Chinese, because whereas Hong Kong is I would say the gateway to the West for Chinese as a former British colony, whereas Taiwan didn't undergo the Cultural Revolution. So they're really the cradle, the sanctuary of Chinese traditional culture. So it's also a mix between American and Chinese culture. They introduced romance, many Chinese elements. They're also very much liked by Western brands, but maybe the image of Taiwanese celebrities may be a little bit lower. Then we had the Japanese trend in the late 1980s, but this time more about products, the made in Japan, especially cosmetic products, and also animation and comics. But because of the political and historical tensions that someone also mentioned between Japan and China, the impact on communication in China is much, much lower. And now we get to the point, this new phenomenon, the Korean influence. It started earlier in the 1980s, but now since a couple of years, or even more recently in 2014, it's becoming huge, huge in China. And the major difference with the previous crazes is that it has a perfect mix. I will get to it later, but a perfect mix between this pre-digested American, Western, but American culture mostly, and an Asianness. And second, it has a real comprehensive impact in China in terms of lifestyle, beyond consumption, lifestyle, and a bigger impact on consumption and brands communication. It's all about, by now, product placement and celebrity endorsement. So to have a more concrete idea of what we're talking about, I made a little montage with some very popular extracts of TV series in China. So here, this is Ralph Lauren. It really helps Chinese people to learn how to mix and match their clothes. BB cushion, Laneige lipstick, education to luxury, fashion and beauty. All these products are branded products, and after they watch it, it had, of course, the sales went to the sky. How to dress in the workplace is also a big challenge for Chinese because they usually wear black suits. So when they see this kind of TV series, they think, we can be more sophisticated at work.
어떻게 됐어? 구혜영 정수아 결혼.
Golf super popular in Korea.
브랜드 직영점 한꺼번에 10개 오픈했더라?
Very
우리 엄마
aspirational in
스타일이
China.
그래. 있는 거나 관리 잘하지.
Going on a romantic trip abroad. This is something many Koreans would do, but in China it's more about collective business trips. So it's also very new. Maserati. Spending times in coffee shops, also very, very popular in Korea, whereas in China it remains very premium, a little bit niche, and very romantic. Drinking red wine.
오빠가 좀 말려.
왜?
왜냐니? 오빠랑 내가
And romance. Korean TV series are all about sweet love, innocent love, and romance. And if you have a closer look, you can see that they have similar outfits, tops, but different colors. And this really launched a trend in China to have the, how do they call it, the love, couple love, the t-shirts. So the girl and the boy would wear the same clothes. So just to illustrate what kind of impact this can have in China. So what is the secret recipe? Why are these TV series so impactful in China? First of all, because it's very aspirational. It's all about beautiful and fashionable characters who know how to dress, etc. It's about romance, and we know that Chinese people are so thirsty about romance, notably because wedding, for instance, in China, it still remains a family affair with social and family pressure. So they really like to watch these love stories. And as we saw, it's about a Western lifestyle, which could be a popular lifestyle as well as a more luxury European kind of lifestyle and art de vivre. Aspirational, but also very easy to identify with. First of all, because Korean people and Chinese people have the same phenotype, so they look alike. So when they see these people living this international kind of life, but the protagonists are Asian people, it's much easier to relate for them. Also, in terms of values, someone talked about it before, they share the same Confucian values. So it's all about you don't have that much sex or violence. If you look at the way people dress in these TV series, it's not as extravagant as in American TV series. So even though American TV series, Gossip Girl, everything are very popular in China, they don't have the same impact in terms of consumption because it's more difficult for Chinese people to relate to these characters. And most important, it's educational, as I said. At a pragmatic level, it's really educating to fashion and beauty, as we saw how to Chinese women are very much concerned about how to mix and match their accessories, do their hairstyle, follow the trends, because Korean TV series also forecast trends, fashion trends in China. And it would be like the equivalent of these etiquette courses that the Chinese millionaires are taking right now to know how to behave in international context. We can say that TV series would be the etiquette courses of the mass in China. At a more psychological level, it's also educational because if we have a closer look at the women who are represented in this TV series, it's very much about very independent women, lawyers or top managers, very aspirational, very independent, or very fragile, poor girls, but who are going to climb up the social ladder and get more self-assurance. And so it's all these women act as role models for Chinese women. Also, in terms of family and sentimental relationship, they show how the young generation can get more independent from their parents and trace their own path into life. of course, without any rupture because it's confusion. So just that to say that the impact of this TV series is not only about product placement, it's not only about beautiful stories, it's also about promoting a real educating on how to live, how to feel, and how to purchase eventually. First example, Gucci, so the Italian fashion luxury brand. It was a big surprise this year when Chinese people discovered that Jin Ju-hyun, who is the heroine of the biggest, most popular Korean TV series in China, My Love from the Star. So she's the most famous Korean star in China. And it was kind of a shock to see that she was the new face of Gucci before Li Bingbing since actually 2012, top super famous movie actress in China. And also right now this model that I didn't know, I think it's a Danish model. So what's the resonance of this Korean star and Gucci? So the good thing about it is that, as I said, Jun Ji-hyun has a huge awareness in China. My Love from the Star, I think there are 5 billion downloads on the Chinese on the Chinese internet, so huge popularity. As a Korean, as a Hallyu star, she has an international image, which is very important for Western brands. And also, if you have a closer look at her image, before she was more, because she was known from a movie called My Sassy Girl, she used to be the cute, playful girl, and now she's evolving towards what the Chinese call the goddess status. But more interesting, she's really a perfect mix between Asian and Western beauty. So she has, as a Korean woman, she's taller, for instance. This is very important for Chinese. They really admire Korean people because they are much taller. Her nose is also a little bit higher. But at the same time, she really resonates for Chinese because of this natural image. In the TV series, all her apparitions, she has these long, natural, curvy hairstyle. If you compare it with Li Bingbing, with always sophisticated hairstyle, there's a big difference. Her complexion is very natural. If you compare to Li Bingbing here, you see it's not really her skin, and she has much stronger makeup. Jin Ju-hyun is always very spontaneous and has this very natural face, and she didn't undergo any plastic surgery, which is quite an exception for Korean stars. So she really embodies this perfect balance, and balance we know is so important for Chinese, between cuteness and sexiness, that is more Western, and also a perfect balance between naturality and excessive sophistication. So all this is very appealing for Chinese. And also, again, compared to Li Bingbing, she embodies, as many Korean celebrities, she embodies freshness. She's 32 already, but it's not about her age. It's about, as I said, her naturality. She embodies something very fresh, and many brands like Samsonite, for instance, would use Korean celebrities to rejuvenate the brand image. The limits of all this is that she's overused in advertisement, because by now, maybe because it's the beginning of the phenomenon, but Western brands and Chinese brands focus on the same handful celebrities in Korea. So she's overexposed for all kind of brands, and especially mass market brands, which may be a problem. And she has a very casual image. She's the funny girl. She would make fun of herself. In the My Love from the Star, for instance, she embodies a Hallyu star, but she would make fun of herself and say, "Oh, I'm always hungry. I need to go on a diet, etc." So she's distant with her status of star. If you compare her to Fan Bingbing, who's the ambassador of Louis Vuitton, she has much more charisma and distance in the movies, because she's a real movie actress, whereas Jin Ju-hyun is perceived as a TV series star, which is a big difference, although she acted in also some real movies, but not popular in China. So big difference in terms of image. And more than that, the image of Korean culture itself is very much about something very accessible, very young, which may be dissonant with the luxury universe. The Korean fashion, for instance, is all about casual, easy-to-wear clothes, sneakers, the street culture, actually. Even though they like to mix and match luxury brands with more casual outfit. Also, we talked about K-pop music, and K-pop music is really about street style culture and American pop. So all this can be a little bit dissonant. Ouais, d'accord, là. Second example is Häagen-Dazs. So Häagen-Dazs, it's a real success story of localization in China. Two major differences with the Häagen-Dazs in Western countries. It's more premium. You don't sell Häagen-Dazs in supermarkets, so it's really, that's why I called it a premium brand. And second difference, it has a really romantic image, whereas in the Western countries it's focused on pleasure. In China, I think the signature is if you love her, take her to Häagen-Dazs. So I'm going to show you the video. It's an advertisement for ice cream mooncakes. So here, it's actually the celebrity, Kim So-hyun, is the partner of Jin Joo-hyun in this cult TV series, My Love from the Star. So, same universe. The great asset of choosing Kim So-hyun is that he's really matching the premium image of the brand. Because, first of all, of his awareness, he's the top male actor this time, most famous and popular in China. There's a real craze about this guy. He's all over in China. And he has a very sophisticated image, very fashionable. He's like a dandy. For Chinese, he's the typical Gao Fu Shuai. That is to say, the guy who's tall, great, rich, and handsome. He's very famous for his this blocker hairstyle, so very fashionable, often wearing a suit, and he's also very tall. Actually, he's called Long Legs. So if we compare it to the previous model that the Häagen-Dazs used for its chocolate ice cream, very different. She's a singer. She's called the Black Beauty in China, and her image is much more gaudy and sexy. So it's a big difference. This time we really match the premium image of Häagen-Dazs. More interesting, he really suits this romantic positioning of Häagen-Dazs and embodies this new masculinity that is promoted by Korea. And this new masculinity is about three things. First, it's about sweetness. All the Korean, Chinese women fantasize about Korean men because they're all soft, sweet, delicate. They pay attention to their physical appearance. They're really, so romantic. At the same time, they are very strong. They are very body-builded. That's why in so many TV series, in the TV series, you cannot escape the scene of the shower where you would see the guy up to here showering and see his chocolate bars. So the typical. And the cherry on the cake, they are often very smart, very well educated. So all this is very, very appealing for Chinese women, because for Chinese men, they think Koreans are gay and they really reject the... Sorry. And if we compare to the representation of Chinese in Chinese TV series, it's very different. On one side, you have the powerful, strong man with the military, in the military TV series. or playing historical roles, and on the other side you have the intellectuals. Oh, it's a caricature, but the comparison is really contrasted. So again, we have a perfect balance between a raw masculinity that may not be super appealing, and on the other side, a too feminine conception of masculinity, because in Korea you also have what we call the flower boys, which are really, really, really feminine. And so here with Kim Soo-hyun, we are right in the middle. That's why he's so aspirational for Chinese. Huh? Oh là là. Okay. And last point, which I think is quite interesting, is the multicultural resonance of this advertisement. It's interesting, let's think. Häagen-Dazs, it's an American brand with a Scandinavian name selling ice cream mooncakes. So mooncakes for the Moon Festival in China. So a lot of layers. And here, what's interesting is that they mix different cultural elements. So for instance, there's a reference to the goddess Chang'e, referring to the Moon Festival in China. You also have the moon, which is a universal symbol of reunion and romance. You have a kind of fantasia atmosphere with the piano, which is quite Western. So, and the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is the first reference of the ad, because they're selling mooncakes, is about about harvest in Chinese culture, and it's about reuniting families and friends. And what does Häagen-Dazs do is that they transpose it in a romantic context, where it's about gathering the man, the lovers. And third layer, it's about reuniting cultures. Also reuniting tradition and modernity. If you have a closer look, in the beginning of the video, you can see the Hangzhou Bridge, which is the bridge of the lovers where they meet again. And in the last image, you have a view of a modern view of Shanghai, which is about modernity, etc. So to have this mixed couple between a Chinese girl and a Korean guy who stands for something more fashionable is, I think, something quite interesting. The problem is that there are some cultural conflicts between Korea and China. Kim Soo-hyun, for instance, he was supposed to advertise for mineral water, but because Korea and China fight for where is that mountain in Korea or in China, he had to cancel the contract. Also, they fight for where do Chinese characters come from? It's a snow, it's a soybean, etc. Many issues. Second point, it may be condescending for Chinese because the representation of the Chinese woman, she looks older than the guy. She's wearing a traditional silk pinkish dress, whereas the guy is much more fashionable. So maybe it's not that cool for the Chinese. And also, he's overused. Bon, I don't have time to... What? Okay. Mass market brand, KFC.
I miss you. Thank you.
买炸鸡套餐送苹果气泡果汁饮料。
Okay, so here again, same scenario, but it's not about ice cream mooncakes, it's about chicken and beer. A direct reference to the TV series once again, so maybe they need to find a little bit more imagination. It's very interesting because in the TV series, Jin Ji-hyun she loves eating chicken and drinking beer, and it really started, as many people know, a real craze in China. Everyone talks about it. The sales of chicken and beer have really climbed, and it's endorsed. The TV series is endorsed by the first lady in China. So it's a huge phenomenon around all this. Second point in this video, it's the illustration of Western lifestyle, which is very relevant for an American brand, once again. A little bit luxurious, I would say, but actually it's a repetition of the interior design in the TV series. it's if we look at the history of KFC advertisement, it's very often very ironic. For instance, after the problem with the chicken in China, they launched a chicken poetry contest about innocent chicken. I don't know if people had a look at the last campaign, the corsage. It's about dating, and the woman, instead of kissing the guy, is biting into the chicken corsage. So it's really ridiculous. It's about self-derision. So maybe this is too far for Chinese. On the other side, when we look at celebrity endorsement, the last one with the Chinese celebrities was found a little bit boring for Chinese, because they didn't really see the legitimacy of some celebrities to endorse burgers or chicken. So here we're a little bit in the middle. But the problem is that whereas Jin Ji-hoon was a little bit too casual and natural for Gucci, here she may appear too romantic and too high class. In the beginning of the video, it's all about romance, so we see her melancholic poses. We don't see the second degree, we don't see the irony actually in the beginning. The supernatural light, the star in the sky, and then with the very romantic English music, and she says, "I miss you." And then suddenly the plate of chicken comes on her balcony. She eats with her fingers. There's this huge, giant chicken nugget coming right into her face. So, and the voiceover in Chinese this time: if you buy the set menu of fried chicken, you get a free apple juice. So it's really, maybe it's a little bit disappointing for Chinese, but at least I think the irony here is not functioning that well because Jin Ji-hoon had such a romantic image that it's a little bit it's killing the thing. Also, maybe the positioning, there's a dissonance in terms of positioning, because if you look at, I showed the environment, this interior design, which is quite luxurious with the works of art, etc., a bit dissonant with the very popular image and accessible image of KFC in China. I mean, KFC is everywhere in China. They have, I don't know how many thousands of restaurants, so it's not like McDonald's or Starbucks. So a little bit dissonant. Voilà. So the conclusion is that we are at a very early stage, so it's very difficult to state some general rules. But I believe that now Western brands rely maybe too much on celebrity endorsement and on just a few super famous Korean stars. So maybe the challenge for them is to try to understand better how to leverage on Korean pop culture, and maybe explore more the new femininities and the new masculinities that Koreans forecast. Thank you.